The room went completely silent when a woman in an elegant black dress walked past everyone, pulled out the chair beside the head of the table, and sat down in the seat that had belonged to the wife for 11 years. She smiled as though she had every right to be there, while the wife stood frozen near the doorway, holding a dish she had spent all afternoon preparing. Her husband said nothing. His sister kept laughing like nothing had happened. His mother looked away, pretending to fix the napkins. But then, from the far end of the table, an elderly woman slowly rose to her feet with the help of her cane, and what she said next made the entire room go cold. Before we continue, if you believe that respect can't be bought, and that some things in a family are earned not claimed, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to this channel. Your support helps us bring you more emotional stories like this one. For 11 years, Emily had believed that marriage meant showing up. Even on the hard days, even when no one was watching. She married Daniel when he was still finishing his degree, working nights at a warehouse just to help pay rent on their one-bedroom apartment. She remembered the year they couldn't afford a real Christmas tree, so they decorated a small potted plant instead and called it perfect. When Daniel decided to start his own business, Emily was the one who believed in him before the banks did. She worked 2 jobs so he could focus on building it. She stayed up with him at midnight, going over spreadsheets neither of them fully understood yet, telling him it would work out. Did work out. Better than either of them had imagined. The business grew. The one-bedroom apartment became a house, and eventually the house became the kind of home featured in local business magazines. But somewhere between the growth of his company and the growth of his ego, Daniel changed. He started missing dinners, then weekends. Then he stopped noticing when Emily was upset, stopped asking about her day, stopped being someone she recognized. Then came Vanessa. Younger, polished, always somehow present at Daniel's work events, his dinners, his trips. Emily saw the messages before he ever admitted anything. She didn't scream. She didn't throw anything. She simply asked him one quiet question. Did their marriage still mean something to him? He didn't answer. And that silence broke something in her that no argument ever could have. The only reason Emily hadn't already walked away completely was Grandma Rose, Daniel's 91-year-old grandmother, who had never once treated Emily like an outsider. While the rest of the family celebrated Daniel's success, Rose was the only one who remembered who had stood beside him with nothing. Rose had been unwell for months, and Emily refused to abandon her, bringing her meals, sitting with her in the evenings, listening to her stories. Then came the dinner that changed everything. Daniel had invited the extended family and several of his business partners to the house. Emily spent the whole afternoon preparing the table, arranging Grandma Rose's favorite dishes, still holding on to some quiet hope that maybe tonight, Daniel would finally be honest with her, in front of everyone if he had to be. Instead, Vanessa arrived in that black dress, walking through the front door like she already owned the place. Daniel greeted her warmly, introducing her to guests as someone helping out with the company. No one believed it. No one said anything either. Emily quietly stepped back, the way she had learned to over the past few months, because sometimes fighting back in front of strangers only made the humiliation worse. When it was time for everyone to sit, Emily walked toward her chair, the one she had sat in for 11 years, the one where she'd announced her first pregnancy, the one where she'd held Daniel's hand the night his father passed away. Before she could reach it, Vanessa slid into the seat first, smiling calmly, reaching for a glass of wine like nothing unusual had happened at all. Emily looked at Daniel. Daniel looked away. That silence told her everything she needed to know. For a moment, she felt like the floor had disappeared beneath her. She thought about every anniversary, every late night, every sacrifice that chair had quietly witnessed, and now someone else was sitting in it like none of it had ever mattered. She lowered her eyes and turned to walk away. That's when Grandma Rose's chair scraped loudly against the floor. The elderly woman rose slowly but firmly, her eyes sharp despite her frail hands. Every conversation in the room stopped. She looked directly at Vanessa and said only 2 words. Get up. Vanessa's smile disappeared instantly. Rose's voice, though quiet, carried through the entire room. She reminded everyone that the seat wasn't just a chair. It belonged to the woman who had stood beside Daniel when he had absolutely nothing. It belonged to the person who sacrificed without ever asking for recognition. Then she turned to her grandson. She asked him where he had been when Emily worked double shifts just so he could build his company. Where was Vanessa when Emily sold her own jewelry to help cover the early business costs? Where was Vanessa the night his first big deal collapsed? And Emily was the only one who told him he wasn't a failure. Daniel's expression changed. He hadn't forgotten those moments. He had just gotten too comfortable to remember them. Vanessa quietly stood and stepped away from the table. But Grandma Rose wasn't finished. She told Daniel that money could buy a bigger house, nicer dinners, more impressive guests. But it could never buy back someone's dignity once you'd carelessly thrown it away. Emily's eyes filled with tears. She expected Daniel to defend himself. Instead, he walked toward her and in front of everyone, admitted he had been selfish, that he had mistaken success for happiness and attention for love. He apologized. But Emily didn't forgive him right there. She told him something everyone at that table needed to hear. Forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting, and she wasn't going to spend the rest of her life proving she deserved basic respect. The next morning, Emily packed a small bag and left the house. Not because Rose told her to, not because Daniel demanded it, but because she finally understood choosing herself wasn't cruelty. It was overdue. Months passed. Daniel stepped back from the company, started therapy, and slowly began rebuilding what he had broken. Not to win Emily back on his own terms, but to actually become someone worth trusting again. Grandma Rose stayed close to Emily through it all, encouraging her to build something that was entirely her own. Eventually, Emily started a small foundation to support women who had given up their careers for their families. Quietly, without asking for credit, Daniel helped fund it. 1 year later, Emily returned to that same house for Grandma Rose's birthday. The table was set just as beautifully as before, and there was that same chair. This time Daniel pulled it out, not for Vanessa, not for anyone else, for Emily. Then he stepped back. Emily looked at Grandma Rose. The old woman smiled. Emily sat down, not to reclaim a seat, but because she finally understood something far more important. Her worth had never come from a chair. It had never come from a husband. It had never come from a house. It had been hers all along. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this one. And before you go, comment "I choose dignity" if you believe everyone deserves respect, loyalty, and a second chance, but never at the cost of who they are. Because sometimes the most powerful moment in someone's life isn't when another person finally chooses them. It's when they finally choose themselves.